Fortune's Favor is one of my favorite hunter exotics they've ever added. While it is super simplistic, the value it brings is absolutely insane, and that was noticed during Contest Dungeon, where switching from Warlock over to this build hard carried our team not only for providing a massive debuff, but also dealing some insane damage. Now before I get into the build, if you guys do enjoy the content, a like and sub would be greatly appreciated. It helps out the channel a lot. So today's build, as I said before, is going to be focused around the brand new exotic boots for Hunter, Fortune's Favor. The exotic perk is called Kismet. After landing a final blow while at full health or when out of combat for an extended duration, your shields will slowly recharge into an overshield. And when you get a kill at max HP, you will instantly start charging an overshield that will keep charging even while you're taking damage, making it pretty easy to keep this up. Plus, as you can see by my screen here, the overshield will last infinitely, meaning you can theoretically have an infinite overshield if you play your cards right. And if you're out of combat, it should take roughly 5 to 6-ish seconds to start gaining the overshield. And hey, while this is a nice buff, because Void Overshield is some insane damage resist, the other buff that this exotic gives you is even better. So when you have an overshield, your weapons gain increased accuracy, stability, handling, and damage against combatants. And final blows will grant a short period of increased mobility once the overshield is depleted. Now this damage buff, by the way, is 20%, and it stacks with everything in the game. Yes, you heard that right, a 20% damage buff that you can get for free just by having an overshield. This is one of the best and easiest buffs you can get from any exotic, since it doesn't require any kills just to keep an overshield. And how we're going to keep infinite uptime on our overshield is with our build of choice. So we're going to be using Prismatic with the Super Deadfall Tether, which recently just got buffed from being a 30% debuff to now a 35% debuff, the current highest debuff application we have in the game, with the abilities Gambler's Dodge or Radiant Dodge, Threaded Spike, and Grapple Grenade, with the aspects Stylus Executioner for another layer of nice survivability, and Ascension, which will also grant us some nice survivability and good movement. Honestly, any of these can be changed around how you see fit. I just felt like they fit the build perfectly, giving both good neutral game plus movement tech thanks to Grapple plus Ascension. Now for the fragments, the number one most important for this build is going to be Facet of Purpose, because when picking up any Orb of Power, we will be getting a Void Overshield. While yes, I know this exotic already gives you an Overshield, meaning you could focus on other DR buffs. In damage scenarios like the brand new dungeon for example, it can be pretty easy to lose your Overshield, and thus the value of Fortune's Favor turns to 0. So this singular fragment can help keep it up even if you have no way to create orbs from getting kills, which I will explain more when we get to weapons. Now the second fragment is going to be Facet of Protection to provide extra damage resist when surrounded by enemies that will get even stronger while we are Transcendent. Now the other two aren't crucial to the build, but I am using Facet of Ruin plus Facet of Sacrifice for some extra stat bumps for both weapons and grenades, so feel free to change those around however you'd like. Okay, now to our weapons of choice here. For exotic, it's going to be either Praxic Blade or Wolfsbane. Praxic Blade with Fortune's Favor is so much fun in Ad Dense content, providing a great damage buff for it that you can use alongside surges, and even something like Radiant Dodge so it can hit like a truck. Now for the weapon mods, on Praxic, I recommend using Offensive Form, Forceful Blade 3, Impact Core, and the trait, just use whatever you want since most of them aren't really going to increase the damage. Like I prefer Hyper Blade just for that little mini eager edge. Now the other exotic of choice, as I said before, is Wolfsbane. This thing is absolutely insane for damage, especially in the brand new dungeon. If you use it alongside the Catalyst Attrition Orbs, you won't ever lose your Overshield, and you'll be able to just chonk bosses. Now Wolfsbane with this build on day 1 hard carried us in contest, since you can be the one applying a debuff, while also dealing most of the time the most damage. It is insane. Now I do want to let you know a trick with this weapon. When you are in its charge mode, if you swap to a different weapon before the timer hits 0, you can get half, sometimes 2/3 of the charge back, making it super fast to refill the bar and get back to the charge mode, dealing more damage. Onto the stats of choice with this build. As you can probably assume by how weapons focused it is, your number one stat to reach is 200 weapons without font mods, so you can still run ×3 surges to get the maximum damage value out of this build. Plus, while at 200 weapons, every brick you'll create will be enhanced, making ammo a non-issue even if you want to do something like double special. Now the second stat will be 70 to 100 super stat, so you can have the best uptime on Tether. For the other stats, try to hit 70 class and I'd say like 70 to 100 grenade stat. These aren't as crucial, but I still think they're pretty nice. For the armor set and mods, if you can do it, I recommend doing Smoke Jumper 2-piece since picking up orbs gives you a 40% damage resist buff that will decay after a few seconds, but can be very strong in helping make our overshield even tankier. Now if you don't have it, don't worry about it. A long-term set you can actually go for it will be the 4-piece Sage Protector, which drops from the dungeon, and is really nice for swords, providing tons of value for ability regen, damage, and even movement tech. Now for the mods, I will have both the Praxic and Wolfsbane setup listed on screen. My focus is to set up fonts to help other stats hit higher values if needed, and then rocking triple surges, either kinetic for Praxic or solar for Wolfsbane, to give it that extra 22% damage alongside all the other buffs. Okay, lastly, for our artifact mod, we are going to be taking Gravatic Voltaic Charge, which will give us an extra armor charge slot since we are using a Void Super, Kinetic Synthesis, where sustained kinetic damage will generate a kinetic brick, giving ammo to kinetic damage weapons, and special plus heavy meter progress. Power from Pain, rapid final blows against weakened enemies, grants Devour. Singularity Blade, while you have a Void Elemental buff, melee and sword hits weaken targets, while melee and sword final blows create a weakening burst. Argent Blade, briefly pause after executing a light attack and follow it up with a light or heavy to empower your sword for a short time, granting increased sword damage and charge rate. Then lastly, Sword Storm combo, performing 3 light attacks followed by a heavy attack, summons penumbral blades that surround you, dealing damage and disorienting nearby combatants. Sword final blows can extend the duration. So if we are looking at these buffs stacked together, so that's 20% from Fortune's Favor, 15% from 200 weapons, 22% from × 3 surges, and 15% from Argent Blade, we are looking at a 193% damage buff to our weapons. And this isn't even including a 35% debuff from Tether, then a possible 35% damage buff from a teammate using Boots of the Assembler, and then either 20% from Radiant or 25% from Well. So yeah, this build can do some insane damage stacking for swords and really any weapon, better than anything on a hunter outside of course, Lucky Pants. And in my opinion, I think a lot of people are just overlooking how good this exotic really is. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the build, and I'll see you next time. Peace.